and good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for attending Ultra Consultants' latest webinar series. My name is Rob Henry. I'm Director of Marketing for Ultra Consultants, and I'd like to welcome all of you to the first of 2 days in our series. We're featuring the top ERP vendors in the biotechnology and medical device manufacturing fields. Each of the vendors this week are talking about their company and how their ERP system brings solutions to this industry. And functionality and solutions that we're focusing on for part one of our series is document management and quality control. And we welcome Merit Solutions to share us some information about their company, their ERP system, and their document management system as well. So our objective for this webinar series is to give you a view of how the latest ERP systems function and provide solutions for quality and document management within the biotech and medical device industry. Webinars are planned and run as education sessions to understand just a few main objectives, specifically how technology supports your business, what's possible with modern ERP systems, and understand the vendors that best address ERP for biotech and medical device manufacturing. Schedule of vendor presentations and demos for this week, and I'd like to remind you that each of our webinars are recorded, that you are subscribers to this webinar, so you'll have access to the recordings at the conclusion of our series this week. And if you're not able to attend both days, we do encourage you to request the recordings after we finish our presentations and watch them and listen to both events to get a full perspective on each vendor and what are their capabilities. Also, to protect our presenting vendors, we do require that all of our attendees abide by our confidentiality and non-disclosure agreement. The information that gets shown in our presentations and that is included in the recordings includes confidential information that should be used by you and your company only for your internal purposes to evaluate the vendors and their products. So you are obligated not to disclose any information that's presented to one that's outside of your company. To start our presentation, let me just give you a few of the guidelines for our session today. The phones are muted for the duration of the presentation to give our presenters the opportunity to show an uninterrupted presentation, but at any time, we'd encourage you to submit your questions and access the chat and the Q&A features on WebEx, so send your messages and send your questions through chat and Q&A. We're finished with our presentation from Merit Solutions. We'll have about 10 to 15 minutes to address your questions that you submit. You can maximize or minimize your WebEx screen with the positive or negative buttons you should see at the right of the WebEx interface. So I'd like to briefly introduce you now to Ultra Consultants and present our leadership, present today's participants, and give you some information about our company, our services, our industry focus, and tell you why companies consistently choose us to guide them from end to end in their ERP projects. First of all, this is Jeff Carr. Jeff's our managing partner here at Ultra, and he's been in the ERP industry for over 35 years, serving primarily manufacturing and distribution. And in his career, he's managed 3 different ERP vendors, and spent the last 17 years helping clients improve their business processes through ERP. In his career, his organizations have helped over 1,000 companies implement new technologies and also business process improvements. And also, Jeff consistently contributes content here at Ultra. He offers numerous blog posts and white papers on topics such as ERP vendors and our evaluation methodologies, and all of that is, of course, available at our website. Joining us today from Ultra, Danielle Brasher. Danielle is a business consultant here at Ultra, and her background is in problem solving for costing and financial reconciliation activities, transportation logistics, and minimizing operational costs. We're very pleased to have Danielle joining us today. I'll give you some background on Ultra. We operate in Chicago, and we've been serving the manufacturing and distribution industries throughout North America and also internationally since 1994. Vendor independent and of expertise are in business process improvement, implementation management services, as well as ERP technology selection and change management. And we believe that improving business processes is one of the main keys, if not the main key, to improving your business performance. We do this essentially with the basic equation that you see here, combining ERP technology with business process management to drive business performance improvement within your company. We have have over 250 distribution and manufacturing clients that have used this type of guidance in both selecting and implementing their new ERP systems. So brief background on our clients, the industries, and our services history. As I mentioned, we work exclusively with manufacturing and distribution clients, as you can see in the pie chart and in the list below it. And we have over 250 successful projects for those companies that range in size anywhere from $25 million up to $2 billion in revenue. And in projects, we've worked with 20 different ERP vendor system implementations and with relationships with over 40 ERP vendors across the Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 categories. And that's where we categorize vendors according to the size of companies that they sell to. And we maintain the information about our vendors through our contact with them, through our client engagements, through vendor briefings. So we have annual briefings with each vendor, as well as their partners and their resellers as well. They're independent. What does it mean? Well, it means that while we're your partner for guiding you in your ERP vendor education and selection, where we get to know in-depth the ERP vendors and their implementation practices that are better for your company and for your project needs, also your partner for helping you make improvements throughout your organization. And how we do this is through our business process improvement services, which we call BPI. So BPI services, we lead you in business process analysis first, which identifies and categorizes the current state of your business. There, but before you decide on what your future state is going to be, we conduct for you our Ultra University sessions. And Ultra University is designed to educate. It's designed to educate you on ERP terminology, the capabilities of the latest systems, and what are the opportunities from those systems that feed into your future state and the best practices for your company. And Ultra University helps you to streamline the process and helps you to accelerate the due diligence you and your company will do when you're evaluating ERP vendors and their solutions. And third, we lead you in business process mapping. And you and Ultra use the business process analysis of your current state, combined with what's learned in your time at Ultra University, to define and map the future state of your processes. So the focus here is not so much on recommending or directing you toward a specific ERP solution, but rather help you improve your business performance in ways that are shown on the right-hand side of the bullet list. Streamlining processes, for example, eliminating waste, and optimizing your assets and the resources that you bring to bear on your project. So as we look at ERP projects, our clients, 3 commonalities to each journey. It's costly, and there's a lot of complexity. The quote that you see at the top, we have the truth in that. When it comes to ERP projects coming in on time and on budget, we see that 55 to 75% range is an even greater percentage. So what we're here to do is help you mitigate the risk factors, help you maintain those high costs, help maintain your costs, hopefully they're not high, and make sure that the complexity of your project doesn't get out of hand and that you maintain the focus on your project goals and that it's not lost to any of these 3 factors. How do we do that? Well, I'm helping you visualize how our services provide for an ERP project that's both functional and transformative for your business. Because those factors, risk, cost, and complexity, are inherent in ERP projects, we offer 4 main services to help you mitigate those: business process improvement, selection, implementation services, and business transformation. So in business improvement, I briefly introduced this earlier, and this is where we lead you in organizing your project. We help you look at your current state, help you and your organization get educated, know the vendors, and know the systems that are relevant to you and your needs, help you define your future state, and that includes business process mapping and process definition. So these combined, they make up your business case for change. And there's 2 really main ways that the business case for change can be used in your project. It can be used as a lead-in to your selection effort and help you understand the details and the decision drivers behind your selection. And also, business change can be used to help you kick off your implementation and help you start your conference room pilots. Technology selection. Ultra is your guide here to help you navigate your vendor evaluation process. That BI, business process improvements document that you craft with Ultra, that informs your transformation roadmap. And what that is the selection of ERP technology as well as your vendor selection. So our technology selection process guides you to a vendor's product that has the best fit with your business process needs, but also, and importantly, to the vendor that will be the best business partner for your organization over the long term. So when you find your business case for change, you selected your system, your ERP system, selected your vendor. What we can do is help you determine how your implementation is planned and how it's executed. And we provide you with some program and project management services, as well as project staffing. So when you combine our deep knowledge of how to conduct ERP projects and your knowledge of your future state goals, this is a powerful combination. It becomes a key ingredient to the success of your project and reduces the time to start seeing benefits from the system. The foundation of business case for change, technology roadmap, implementation plan, these together define your business transformation. And we help you transform your business. We help you reduce your risk, the efficiency and success of your whole project, and of course maximize the return on investment that you're getting from your system. So this is our upcoming webinar schedule, and I offer this just as a final example of our vendor independence and the strong relationships we have with ERP vendors. As you can see, we have a lot of opportunities over the next few months for industry, business process, and vendor education. And for all of our events, whether we have a week-long webinar series or an industry webinar like this one, or just a 1-hour session with one select vendor solutions, we make effort at every stage to educate you on best practices and teach you about what's possible as you start considering your future state with ERP. I'll now start passing the presentation over to Paul Challenor, a consultant from our guest today, Merit Solutions. Paul will be introducing Merit Solutions as well as Dynamics AX and the MaxLife document management system. He'll get into the specifics of the requirements and the necessity of document management and how managed within the MaxLife system. So bear with me for a moment. I'm going to pass the presentation over to Paul. There we go. All right, Paul.
Ron.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Danielle, and thank you for all the folks that have joined us today. As Ron said, my name is Paul Challenor. I'm a solution architect with Merit Solutions, a Microsoft software developer organization headquartered out of Chicago, Illinois. Be here today to share with you a little bit of information about Microsoft Dynamics AX ERP system and Merit Solutions extension to that system, which we market under the name MaxLife. Specifically, we'll be diving more deeply today into the document management features the MaxLife system to the base Dynamics AX ERP system. And on me, I have been in and around ERP systems for more years than I care to count. As both a consultant and as an IT director, a CIO for a multinational manufacturing company. The last years, I have focused my efforts on helping customers understand, configure, and implement Dynamics AX to meet their systems requirements and business needs, primarily around the manufacturing, products, life sciences, just in areas. So in my normal job, I'm working hand in hand with customers to configure and design and implement the Microsoft AX ERP system with Merit Solutions add-ons to it. In my spare time, I get to do fun things like this, which is talk to people about the system they haven't yet selected, in the hopes that they will find a match between the capabilities of the system and their system needs going forward. So further ado, let's dive in. Just a brief introduction agenda for the topics I'd like to cover today. Just a brief introduction to Merit Solutions and who we are and why I think I want to stay here and work forever. A little bit about Dynamics AX as an ERP system and MaxLife product and how it extends the base Dynamics AX ERP system. A bit about why document management is a critical piece of the puzzle for science, med device, biotech companies, and where it should fit in your overall plans. Peek at what we typically find as engage new prospects and new customers in their current state of their document management systems and why we think it's important to include that as part of your ERP and systems renovation selection projects. At a high level, some of the key user requirements that should form the basis for your selection criteria and your evaluation of different alternatives. We'll look at a typical walkthrough of a workflow as it applies to document management systems, some of the key processes that the document management system will manage, And then we'll spend a bulk of our time actually walking through a hands-on demo of document management system as a companion to Dynamics X to get a good flavor for how the system works, how it might work in your environment. That will lead us to our conclusion, where we'll have a time for questions and answers. So having a little bit about Merit Solutions. I've been with Merit Solutions for 6 years, and I'm very proud to say that Merit Solutions is one of many reseller organizations in the Microsoft ecosystem. As you imagine, Microsoft doesn't sell directly to many customers. They rely on a partner network to facilitate the sale and support of many of their customers in the ERP space. Many of those customers have been for many years. We've got a variety of different awards that you see listed there. Our focus on medium-sized customers, especially those focusing on life sciences, manufacturing, distribution, med device. And not customers, not prospects that want to do a simple systems and then continue business as usual, but companies that really want to implement a new platform that will allow them to continuously innovate, continuously grow, continuously improve the process, and want a new platform and a new foundation to help facilitate that. With Dynamics AX ERP system and the surrounding technologies, a little bit more about what that means in a minute. I've been a partner of Merit, or partner with Microsoft since the early 90s. We have this throughout the U.S., East Coast, West Coast, and the office is, as I said, here in Wheaton, Illinois, which is a suburb of Chicago. And then we have offices in Great Serbia in Europe, where we have a full staff of functional consultants, business consultants, and engineers, seeing both the European market space and the European customers, and also an integral part of our U.S.-based projects as well. This at Merit Solutions has been and continues to be a focus on customer satisfaction. I think that's evident in some of the statistics you see there. It's evident in the referral rate and the referenceability that we have of our existing customers. And frankly, it's a key reason why I like working here. I know that I'm working with customers. We're going to do what we need to do to satisfy the customer's requirements, to meet the needs, make sure they are satisfied and excited and thrilled at the services we're providing, even going the extra mile to do that. Foundation is on long-term customer relationships. It happens when you have a real focus on a partnership with the customer to help them meet their business goals. Unique things about Merit Solutions as it stands out among the partner ecosystem within the Microsoft world. One, call our plus methodology. And to go through all these boxes. A couple things I will call out here that are fairly unique within our market space. One is big yellow box in the top left called business transformation. This is a little bit with what Ron was describing, the Ultra methodology takes place, but this is really done typically in the context of after you've selected an ERP system like Dynamics AX. A critical step early in that process is to go through what we call business transformation mapping. And that can take two different flavors. There's a flavor that says, how we want to do the business. We want you to figure out how to make your new ERP system do exactly what we want, regardless of how much effort is involved. It's one end of the spectrum. We have a unique set of business processes that we need to conform. We need a system to support. The other spectrum, Merit comes to the table with a set of best practice templates and process pre-designed with a solution that may, in fact, a large portion of your organization's business needs. And piece there is for us to help you recognize where the standard best practice templates will fit your work process and where we might need to make some small adjustments. So which is from either of two directions, and frequently, most customers want us to approach it from both. So we buy some key processes that are unique to that customer's operations, unique to that business's key success, and those we spend a careful amount of time understanding exactly what the unique properties are, and then tailor the system to meet exactly those needs. Whereas areas isn't considered a business critical differentiating factor for the organization, and they're really a focus on finding the simplest, quickest, most effective way to implement a best practices template out of the box. The way to get going quickly with reflux and quick time value. business transformation piece, and that's a critical piece of the early stages of our implementation. The other attention to that isn't so much highlighted is this box over here on the right called Merit Care. And it's kind of our ongoing commitment to the customer and reporting in an ongoing basis for the love of that system. So here is go live after implementation service that we have customers that provide those ongoing support and ongoing maintenance services that are so important to keeping the system running and helping you adjust the system and grow the system and improve the system as your company continues to grow and develop. So the program that's customized for each customer that includes dedicated support staff and dedicated hands-on monitoring of them to help make sure the system continues to operate in the most effective way possible and helps you adapt and grow the system as your company adapts and grows. A little bit about Merit and a little bit about, I think, what makes us unique and valuable in the market. Now, this Dynamics AX thing. You'd be familiar with the Dynamics AX product. Others of you probably are confused because Microsoft has 5 different products they all call Dynamics. And they're all different products, but they're all called Dynamics. So how does that work? Well, the works is Dynamics word. There's a couple words that tell you which product we're talking about. In this case, we're talking about Dynamics AX. Microsoft purchased 4 or 5 different ERP systems back in the 80s and the 90s, and to exist as an independent Dynamics product. But each serves a very specific niche in the market space. Dynamics AX is their choice for medium-large businesses, especially extended businesses with complex business processes and more advanced requirements. The Dynamics that you may already be familiar with that's been the most commonly implemented is Great Plains. That continues to exist, but it's really focused on the smaller organizations, the more straightforward, simple, more financially based ERP implementations. AX is the market for Microsoft. It's where the bulk of their investment is taking place, and we're most excited to see the advanced functionality that is being added on an ongoing basis, and we're seeing this adoption over the last several years as well for this Dynamics AX product. About what is included in this Dynamics AX. For one, the customers have access to a wide breadth of information or functional processes that are supported by the system. And review of those processes here, everything from the core financial management, human capital management, features that are traditional in ERP systems, but also in the full supply chain management elements from procurement, purchasing to sales and marketing, full housing management, transportation management, inventory management, distribution planning, MRP planning, also included in the base product. Full manufacturing operations, be they lean or process or discrete, all are supported within the Dynamics base product. In fact, one of the most features of the AX manufacturing function is that you can have a mixed mode manufacturer in a single site. Some portions of the plant are operating in a lean, but other portions are operating in a process flow mode, and other sections are operating in a discrete mode. And the system is able to plan effectively throughout that process. So a retail component for those that have a retail side to their business. Across the top, you see that there's specific vertical industry functionality as well, beyond this horizontal functionality. Specific vertical industry function to support the 5 key vertical industries that Microsoft is focusing on for the development of AI. That is retail, manufacturing, distribution services, and public sector. Most sciences and biotech folks and core financials may use the HR, the human capital management features, and the supply chain features. And some that do their own in-house or that do the contract manufacturing and want to track it on a more detailed, granular level in their own system will also use the manufacturing elements of the system for a full process understanding within the system of all the operations that are taking place within the organization. About Dynamics AX. One feature about Dynamics AX that makes it particularly useful and flexible in the marketplace is it's designed from the ground up make it easy, seamless, and trouble-free for software vendors like Merit in functionality that it's written to the Microsoft standards and certified by the Microsoft certification process, inserted into the core Dynamics AX system in a seamless and invisible way to the users. So once a proper set of extensions or add-ins are inserted, the system simply adopts the new functionality, the new features of that system in a seamless way, so the users don't even disconnect between the base product and the add-in product. Had a long history of working with life science med device companies. Identified early on, Dynamics AX has a huge breadth of functionality and a lot of key support for science-specific functionality that was missing some key elements for all functional requirements for many life science companies. In response to that, Merit background in life sciences, an add-in product for Dynamics AX that we've called Max Life. So Max has several different pillars or key features of functionality that are critical for life sciences companies to be implemented in a compliant and validatable process. And the functionality around these 8 pillars, if you will. Life Sciences document management we'll spend a lot of time talking about, so I'm going to skip past that for now. There is a training and certification element that helps you track training and education requirements and status of all your employees, and make sure that those certification or training requirements are respected when this goes to assign work to production workers or other individuals in the organization. Helps you track the retraining requirements and the overall certification requirements of your users. Signatures is a slide that adds critical functionality to this electronic signature support that that Dynamics AX comes with out of the box, and all extends that electronic signature support to the document management system as well. So key things that are specified in the 20 CFR Part 11 regulations describe electronic signatures that are required in order for them to be considered full FDA-compliant electronic signatures. Adds those key features to the base system so that you're able to implement that and show compliance with the details of those regulations. Records is to me exciting parts of Max Life. So for so long, batch records have consisted of paper records or very large PDFs of people scanning paper records into a single record. So I've got a single document that records all the details of the history of where a product batch came from and how it was built and how it was tested. And in parallel to that process, we have an ERP system. We're already recording details about how we're making that product batch and what materials are going into that product batch, what tests are being performed to approve or evaluate or release that product batch. So all that is already being captured in the ERP system. The electronic batch record functionality in Max Life lets you look at all that information, push a button, and have the system full all that information with all the related information about the electronic signatures that have been collected along the way and the approval steps that have been processed in the process of issuing material or dispensing goods or recording quality release testing. Take detailed information that's already in your ERP system and pull it all into a single document in your secure document management system. You've got a single record of all the different details about that and where it came from and what the activities and tests and people were that were involved in creating that batch. The Max Life electronic batch record we see as a real boon to productivity and a boon. You've got a single version of the truth. You're capturing data once, recording it accurately, and then leveraging that for all uses in a systematized, automated way that prevents that dual entry and that X for error. So this is a key element of Max Life. The bottom row, we see some other pieces that are also important elements of Max Life. From a software validation standpoint, Max Life product comes with templates and order packs and requirement stocks that help facilitate your software validation efforts and validate it for you. But we can certainly give you up, reduce the amount of extra work you need to do in the system to get it into a validatable state. So then we can work with your validation team, be it in-house or third party, to help facilitate that validation process. Corrective and preventive actions is a key element in any compliant life sciences organization, and it adds critical functionality to the base Dynamic AX product to help you manage your CAPAs in a way that conforms to regulations and gives you, again, a single source of the truth, a single place to document the activities and the rights that are important to maintain for compliance. Workbench is similarly a single place where you can go to see the full lot genealogy, the history, activities that took place against a single product batch. So whether it's a backward look to see where the product came from, where the components of the product came from, how much is still on the shelf, or whether it's a forward looking to see which customers did I ship that product back to, or how much is still on the shelf, what tests were executed against those batches, and who in QA was it that approved or didn't approve the product. That's a place to look up all things in a way to make it easy to access that information, and all this, the robust transaction tracking and transaction controls that are part-based Dynamics AX products, but bring all those details together into a single screen and make it easily accessible for particular folks that need to have access to that detail. That's what Material Controls Workbench is all about. And another element, base Dynamics AX product has a lot of great quality control, quality tracking, quality testing features that are into the core system. Didn't extend that to a costing standpoint, so you could have an effective look in the ongoing cost of quality, cost of compliance, and so MaxLife adds some key features there to help that process and let you have an active, ongoing process of monitoring and managing the cost of quality in your organization. Some of the key pillars, the key elements that make up the MaxLife product, we're very pleased to be able to share with you. Our main topic today is talking about this life sciences document management pillar, so let's dive into that a little more. So, from the fact that it's just fun, and it is fun, trust me. So, for document management, I think there are three key reasons here, and they're each important to look at and important to keep in mind as we undertake this journey. First is simply just adherence to the federal regulation. A variety of different elements of the federal that relate to different sectors of the biotech, life sciences, and med device industry. You see those listed there. Each one of those describes specific requirements and specific elements or system that are required in order to maintain a compliant system and compliant operations. Not that all these things need to be automated, but if you're going to automate systems, these describe the basic core requirements that every validable and compliant system must comply with. And so the step is just basic compliance. You could also that to address some of the GAMP requirements as well, as many organizations want them in a GAMP compliant way as well. This is almost as important, perhaps more important, although it doesn't have the threat of jail time behind it, but it's certainly a critical piece to success in changing business world we've got in, is that having easy access to an integrated set of information, one version of the truth, the easy access to real information, non-information siloed, segmented, non-integrated, accessible, consistently applied to death knell for information handling in an adaptable, growing organization. So having a central repository of key data, central repository of effective and approved documents, a central platform on which to develop new documents and track and review and approve all those documents, and then a consistent archiving and withdrawal process as well to make sure only the current documents are in play and observed and in use by people. So having a single version of truth and a single platform on which to manage all this is a key element to seize and enable growth and flexibility in an organization. Here has to do with compliance again, but back to the warning that the FDA sends out, the 483s, persistent and ongoing non-compliance. The most cited reason for issuing 483s is a lack of poor documentation or poor documentation controls. A solution that addresses the document management requirements in a compliant, validated, validable process and to those regulations is a critical component to regulatory actions and avoid even the threat of regulatory actions embodied in the 483s. So those are why we see people putting efforts and investing time and effort in getting the right document management system in place. So new custom prospects and talking about document management. So I've worked with customers all the way from pre-commercial, initial stage one submission all the way through commercialization. And obviously everybody's coming from a slightly different place, but some of the common themes we've seen as we worked with a variety of different life sciences organizations. Most have existing systems. They're old and dated. They're expensive to maintain. They tend not to be flexible. And they tend to be implemented for an organization that no longer exists. In that, organizations today tend to grow, mutate, improve, change, advance, sometimes shrink, but they're never the same organization 3 years later as they were when they were implemented. So a system that is not able to adapt and change and grow with you is a critical failing. And some that are 7 to 10 years old or older are as adaptable as they need to be. It's the pace of change that we use today, which gets into that second bullet point as well. The third element here is that in many organizations we're working with, we're seeing an increasing reliance on outsourced and third-party place in the organization's processes, whether CMOs or organizations, or whether it's handling the sales and distribution side of the business, whether it's search organizations or clinical trials submissions, or all kinds of third-party organizations. Having a siloed system that lives only within your own walls is increasingly a hindrance to effective and efficient business processes. The whole idea about use of the cloud as a platform mechanism for easier sharing, or outsourcing some of the headaches and the overhead associated with maintaining an ongoing system. Use cloud is a great way that a lot of people are looking to reduce IT internal spend, increase flexibility, move to a services model where the services they need are provided without having the overhead and the complexities of maintaining the internal support staff, internal support structure. Important one to remember. Many customers are saddled with an old and inflexible system that you're going to make today or next year to content management, document management system needs to be looked at, and the ERP system for that matter needs to be looked at from the lens of not how am I going to solve this year's problems or next year's problems, but it's a long-term marriage. It's a long-term commitment. And so the question, getting the analysis correct and making the best possible decision isn't just a simple matter of optimizing short-term growth. It's a facilitator for long-term business development, making the investment and really analyzing and predicting the business needs, both short-term and long-term, understanding how those needs line up against the different abilities and capabilities of the different systems you're evaluating is obviously something that Ultra is a great partner in helping you do, but that recognizing that it is a long-term commitment you're making. So being deliberate and careful and measured in how you're making that analysis is a critical component. So that's what we see when we talk to customers that are considering document management systems. I'm not going to belabor this slide, but I think it's important to recognize that these elements of the quality management system and the document management system have a role to play throughout the life cycle, if you will, of an organization, whether they're in discovery mode, R&D mode, whether they're in drug development mode, whether they're actively manufacturing in anticipation of commercialization, or they've got the final approval and they're in full-blown commercialization mode. The management system is a critical pillar to undergird all those efforts, and the earlier you lay a foundation in place that you can build on, the less rework, the less migration headaches, the less change takes will come down the road later if you can start from a platform that you know is going to be able to grow and you as your business continues to grow and expand. Great. So high-level user requirements. So what are the key elements to look for when you're talking about a document management system? And I'm not going to belabor these. This is a combination of what are the specific requirements written into the regs, especially 21 CFR Part 11 that describes the electronic records and electronic signature requirements, but also some of the nuances from some of the other requirements. And the other element, what are some of the business process enabling features that are important to make that not only that it's compliant with the letter of the regulations, but that it also supports your business and your processes in a way that enables efficiency and enables growth and enables flexibility. About being able to have a variety of different content types. So most companies will have many different content documents that they need to manage, and each one needs to be managed perhaps slightly different way with certain different properties or requirements placed on. So having a system that is flexible and lets you manage different types of content in different ways is important. The audit trails is kind of one of the foundational elements behind the whole system, and having an audit trail and electronic signatures that you can assign and collect by role, not just necessarily by hard-coded user IDs, is important. Making sure that those electronic signatures that are collected, and documented, and logged, and tracked, done so with the appropriate controls and the appropriate characteristics as laid out in the regulations. Uniform document formats, obviously important for consistency and making sure people can understand how documents are created and what the content of the documents are intended to mean. Access control, internal and external collaboration, that is making it easy for the role to access the system with the appropriate levels of control and making sure the wrong people don't have access. Extending that access to both internal folks and external folks, whether those external folks are employees working from home or working from the road or working from Starbucks, or whether it's external third-party, greater outsourced organizations that also need to have access to your documents, whether it's a CMO having access to the latest product specs or a supplier being able to submit ways for their material they're supplying. Process standpoint, there's a variety of different requirements that a good document management system should support. We need to support creating documents and editing documents, but also deleting documents and tracking revision history is a critical piece. Have workflow and management for the document. So we're involving the right people at the right stages of the document. We're tracking the status and making sure that the document is matched throughout its life cycle. Retrieval, we're to Googling everything these days, having a system, document management system that supports a compliant level of search and retrieval so that you can be sure that when you are looking for the documents you're looking for, you're finding exactly the right documents, and have a platform that lets you do that in a way that's simple and straightforward, and users have confidence in as a critical element there. To decide what metadata or what elements, what properties of the documents that you want to be able to track is important. Everybody has a different set of metadata that they want to track about their documents. Everyone looks at their business slightly differently, categorizes their business activities slightly differently, and a user extendable or user definable criteria or metadata elements classify your documents is a critical piece for document management. Have critical elements here. So extending the notification and distribution of documents beyond just the folks that are deliberately and logging into the document management system. So making sure that we're leveraging external notifications, whether they're email or text or other alerts going forth, and being able to use the system as a platform to distributing those and make us part of everybody's work experience is important. Understand tracking is a little subset of document management. It actually falls under our training and certification management pillar. As tracking the restand training efforts that employees must go through to make sure that the SOPs are being distributed and adhered to and respected and being able to track all that activity. So when a new employee is hired, how do I verify and track that the SOPs that relate to the job and have accepted and that they understand them? How do I make sure that when their retest date or their dates are whether it's a revision to an SOP and who it is that needs to be notified and tracked for their compliance to the new SOP, or whether it's a retest interval on existing SOPs, how do I manage that backlog? How do I track the compliance of the various departments in my organization? How do I ensure that everyone that's doing job X has reviewed all the SOPs that relate to job X? Make sure that we're current on the training requirements and commit beyond a shadow of a doubt, but that all we can manage that ongoing workload and have a system that helps track that. So that's really understanding tracking is an important part from a training and certification management standpoint, and the core functions for that, we believe, is the document management system. There's tracking usage, form controls, paper hard copy management, pretty obvious. So that user requirements is a typical document workflow. We're not going to walk through all the boxes here because we're going to do this hands-on in the system, but you can just at a high level, it's a request for a new document. You create a new document, easy for me to say. Process where the author can collect review comments from different reviewers of the document. The author can then submit the document for approval. If the document is approved by the approvers, it becomes an approved document. If an SOP or another training-related document, you may also track an additional status on that document. It's not just approved, but when does it become effective? So in the case where I have an existing SOP, everyone in the company understands the existing SOP, everyone's following the existing SOP. I can't make the new SOP effective until that a number of the existing into the new SOP and are following the new SOP or already are following the new SOP. So there's no step for those training-related documents beyond approved that says, when am I actually going to make them effective? So that can be monitored and tracked through our read and understand tracking, so that when you have a revision to an SOP or a new SOP, you can track not just the approval status, but also the effective status of that SOP and be able to manage that process so that you know when you're able to make it effective, because certain thresholds of users have accepted and read and acknowledged the new SOP. And then we have processes that let you submit change requests and withdrawal requests for existing documents. Might be a high-level picture of the system. I'm going to take a sip of water now and switch over to a hands-on walkthrough of the EMS module. I have the home page for Life Document Management System is that it is in a browser. The site notice, if you're Microsoft savvy, it's like it's based on SharePoint, and that's because it is based on SharePoint. It is the most effective way to deliver customizable and functional web applications for existing customers, especially those that are familiar with the Microsoft ecosystem. So, it's an integral part of Windows Server in many cases. It is the platform on which we've built our document management systems. So what's important about that? Number one is there's no additional system software that you need to worry about buying, provisioning, and training your staff on and learning. The second is that it is purely a browser user system. There are no plugins, there are no additional elements or programs or security issues that you need to worry about on a client basis. We use SharePoint as the hosting for the hosting of the system. So we use standard Microsoft tools for editing. It's using tools or system users are comfortable with in order to hear with. So there's not a free training and a lot of specialized education or training required to be familiar and productive in the system. Completely integrated with your existing Microsoft-based Active Directory application system. So there's not a new password to remember. There's not a new set of user IDs. There's all existing role controls over those users that are already in place in your directory system internally, or whether hosted internally, I guess, or in the cloud. We're relying on all that same power and all that same security that Microsoft provides as the base of their Windows network and their Windows user base. Up in the right corner, I'm signed in at this site right now as myself. Over the we'll look at a couple different sessions where I'm in as other people, and I'll point that out as we go forward. But for now, I'm signed in as myself, and I happen to be a system administration privileged user, so you'll see some records not just to my particular user role in the system, but also to the system itself. As we users, you'll be able to see the system trimmed down to more with a simple, typical user system picture and see that's tailored for them. What's important about the SharePoint platform is it means that we can expose a large number of training and configuration options for you as a customer. So if you want your approval workflows to look a little different, if you want the different elements, data elements, or properties of certain types of documents to be recorded, tracked, or differently, or if you have different types of content, document types that you want to manage through the system, all that's all within your configuration options. So, and we'll get to that if we have time right after we walk through some of these key processes, and we'll show you how easy it is to be able to extend some of those lookups, those categorization elements, some of those document content types as to exactly your needs when you're implementing. But now, we're going to go back to that flow chart. If you picture it in your mind, and one of the first steps in the flow chart was, what does it look like? I as a user, going to ask, request a new document be created that we're going to manage through the document management system. Pillar here is view new document requests. I'm just going to click on that link, and I can see that there are currently no open documents. So every document that's been requested has at least been started in the system. What I can do, if I have a need for a new document, I've identified a new document that I think needs to be created in the system. I just click on the new document, and now I can fill in the name of the document that I think should be created. And companies already have an SOP for handling complaints, but just in case this one doesn't, I'm going to say we're going to create a standard operating procedure for complaint, for customer complaint intake. Type, you see the system comes out of the box with a variety of different predefined document types. These are customizable by you. So if these aren't the specific document types that you want to manage in the system, or you have ones that you want to manage, we can extend these. You can configure it to be whatever this list is that you want it to be. For now, I'm going to choose standard operating procedure. And one of those is that because I've configured standard operating procedure document in a particular way, the system knows that if I'm talking about a standard operating procedure document, then these different metadata elements that I may want to tag that document with the new document that I'm creating. So the customer complaint intake SOP, if I want to categorize that by company department, I'm going to even assign it to a couple different departments for searching and retrieval standpoint. Certainly, quality assurance is one of those departments. So this is a user customizable list during implementation, and on an ongoing basis, you can configure the system to use the departments and the names that are meaningful to your users and to your organization. I'm going to go through each one of these, but jobs and skills is a great example of how the system can track for documents that relate to training requirements, and obviously SOP would be one of those. This is a tag which jobs or which skills the document relates to, especially from a training need. So if I want to look at what are all the SOPs that a particular job must be trained in, I have a way of making sure that when I assign a particular user to a particular job, I had an easy way to get the list of what are the SOPs they have to be trained in, what they have to complete and understand training before allowed to actually have function in their job. And an easy way to categorize these SOPs in a way that lets me do that. Control number is an optional field. Many customers nations have an external and very tightly controlled change control system where they're able to assign individual change control numbers to every change within both the automated systems and the manual systems throughout the organization. So change control number in this case is just a free-form entry field. We can enter whatever change control number the QA change control department has assigned me to retract this particular change to the system, this new document that I want to create. Document description that I can use to do that. I'm not going to get too clever here. He really wants to watch me type. And I've also got a categorization of why, what is the reason for creating this document. And I'm going to just say this is a basic SOP required. And then there's also another flavor that impacts whether when we're doing training on this document, is there a separate assessment required to assess the user understanding of the document? And I'm going to say no for now. I'm not done. I filled out the parameters of this new document that I want to have someone create. And just when I did that, it allowed me to specify who I think the author of that document ought to be, and defaulted to me. I could have that to specify a different author. Sometimes I want to tell somebody else what to do instead of just volunteering to do it all myself. But in this new document request is going to boomerang me to be the author of this new document. If I had specified someone else, that other then would have gotten an email telling them of their appointment and giving a chance to either accept or reject request. Rejecting it would have bounced it back to me, and then I could have decided comments on why they rejected it and decide if I really want to resubmit it or not. Document request. Oh, it's no longer open. I just hit the refresh key, and then now there's no longer any open requests. If I look at the all request link, here's my new complaint intake request. So the document creation process was completed. I did it to myself. I treated it as approved. That means so far. So far we don't have an approved document. We don't have a finalized document, but we have a draft. And when I configured the system, configured the standard operating procedure document type, specified where I wanted library system I wanted to use to hold the drafts for new or revisions to standard operating procedure documents. There's the draft folder. And I have system access. I'm seeing a lot of different drafts in here. The user would see drafts for documents for which they are the author. So in this case, because I'm system admin, I'm seeing for documents for which I'm the author. I'm also seeing drafts of documents for which I'm not the author. May not be the case. What the system did was it created a new draft of a document called Customer Complaint Intake SOP. This is a document number, so we've got a unique tracking number for that document. And also built a history document as a way of tracking all the revisions and activities that are taking place on this particular document. It ought to be behind where this document came from. The document this now is draft version of 0.1, since nothing's happened to this document yet, other than just instantiating a blank, empty template for which I can then enter some details. So I would have gotten an email directing me to this draft folder, directing me to this new document, and I would then log in there, and I'll say, okay, this is going to open in Word. This is my chance to then go ahead and edit this new document that this guy has requested I produce. And you'll see it's got some automation here. So this automatically knows and fills in the header information about what the title, what the author, and what the document number is. Those were generated automatically based on the properties of the document content type. Well, it's up to me as a user to fill in the author elements of the document. And I can and the details I want in here, and I'm not going to pull this. But just can see a little bit about what the editing experience is. I'm in standard Microsoft Word here. I'm just simply filling in the blanks, filling in a new document that's been created based on the standard template identified as being the standard template for standard operating procedures. So I'm done with this. I can then save it back to SharePoint, edit it, and applied the content into the standard template for this customer complaint standard operating procedure. So there's a couple different things that could happen next in the life cycle of this document. First side, that I did a good job of writing the procedure. I'm just going to submit it for approval right away. Certainly in the case of more nuanced and more complex documents, I probably want to get some. I want to probably have this document reviewed by a couple different key subject experts in different departments, whether it's QA or regulatory or perhaps sales even for a customer complaint type document. Reviewed and get some comments back to make sure that the people that will be impacted by this SOP and that are knowledgeable about the requirements around complaint handling have it to review my work and provide any comments or suggestions or changes that they think are important. So I can hit this open menu link here, and then the extra open menu link. And see, I have a variety of different actions I can take on this document. One I can take is submit it for review. So you could submit it for approval, but I'm not going to do that yet, so I'm going to submit it for review. Who would I like to review this document? Who is important as they are? I should know who needs to review this document before I submit it for approval. And then I'm just going to specify one of them as being the perfect person to review this document. So what happens? That user is now going to get an email saying, Paul, review this document. Click here to go review this document. And I have another browser session going on right now where I logged in as my test one user. So it says SharePoint test one up here. User I signed as the reviewer of this document. System. The easiest for him to do is simply to go to his task menu and click on tasks that are assigned to me. You know that 4 of them are completed, and I could easily fill those out. A pretty short list if I filter those out, so I haven't in this particular demo case. You can see that I have a document review request for this document, customer complaint intake SOP. So this is yet as a reviewer that asked me to review a document. When that review request, and here's how I've got a note. This is, by the way, you got an email about this. Please review this GMP instruction doc, the proper document, and the internal document history document to make applies with your requirements. And we'll talk a little bit more about what this internal document history document is. You can go back to Review Documents folder to see the documents that are offered for review. And you see, I can see this document, see that there is a review in process. And as a reviewer, I can open this document, edit this review copy to then make any kind of comments or changes or revisions that I want to using standard Microsoft Word. Track changes automatically turned on, so any changes I make here and important. I can save my change, and I can think this document looks fine. So I'll go over to that task I have and say, actually, I've also got to look at this thing we're calling the document history. So look at this. This is a separate document that the system creates for every document, for every core document that is being, and it is basically a history of the details of where this document came from, what happened to the document. So here at this point, all it says is that the document was approved. And because it was approved by the author automatically, I specified myself as the author, it was approved automatically. If I specified a separate author from myself, then you the details about exactly who approved this document to be created. But at that point, this is all that's taking place with this document is just the approval of the creation. So there's not a lot of detail there. But I can go to that task now and say, yeah, I reviewed the document itself. I've added some comments, and I'm good. I think I can call this review process done. So I'm going to go over here and edit this review process. So yes, I have reviewed the document, and I added comments to it. I reviewed the document properties, and I'm good with the document properties. I reviewed the document history, no comments on the document history, and no comments on the training item because we're not going to talk about training today. And some, I'm going to say, with comments. So I now have relinquished my review. You'll see this review request is now status completed. Essentially back in the court of the author. So I'm going to go to my Paul Chaloner session here and screen and see now that the customer complaint SOP is now status back to draft. It's no longer review pending and ready to then review the details of the comments that were made and maybe make some more changes myself or just accept those changes. And then I'm do some more document, or I may think it's ready to submit for approval. So we're ready for approval. So what does that look like? As you might have guessed, the author, I'm going to come back to this document, and I'm going to say I need to submit this for approval. I'm going to go menu, open my X menu here, and I'm on here, and I'm going to say, let's submit the document approval request. Document approval request is a little different than the review request, and that's been figured. Documents require two different sets of approvers for every final approval process. There are the functional approvers that have to approve the content, and the last step is always a QA, one or more QA approvers, who are the final word on the right other approvals have taken place, and the final approval comes from the QA experts. This is fully approved. Who needs to approve this? I'm going to say SharePoint test one person needs to be the functional approval, and maybe that's the only functional approval. And the QA approver, I happen to know that SharePoint test 3 is our final QA, belongs to the QA group, so they can be the final QA approver to approve this document. So I'm freedom and the flexibility to choose who my approvers need to be. Obviously, the QA approver is going to validate that I chose the appropriate persons, or people chosen here were appropriate for provide functional expertise necessary to approve this document properly. And the QA approvers will have the final say. That's a very similar thing to the review process. It's sending an email to that set of reviewers, the functional reviewers, asking them to access the system, review the document, review the history, and then indicate they're prepared to approve that document as written. Back to my SharePoint email. It's going to direct them back to my list. I'm looking at my list, and now I've got actually, I need to wait for run. So test one is calling me up saying, you know, you're going to send this document for me to review or to approve. What's the deal? Here, a user, and I'm going to say, I thought I submitted this document for approval. In process, what's the deal? You don't see it. So I'm going to come down here to my document approval requests. list my document approval requests. This says in progress. What does that mean exactly? It means actual approval has to come from me, the author. Author, I kind of forgot that in order to get a document approved, I need to sign the document myself before I send it to anybody else to be signing it. So hold as a user my own task, and if I paid attention to my email, I would have noticed that I ask my own document. So here's my task, and here's my document approval request for my customer complaint intake SOP. So the author, it's not enough that I draft the document, I need to sign it as well. So what I need to do is take this approval request item, click button, and it's asking for the details of my electronic signature. Who am I signing as? So I'm going to sign as author. I'm going to provide my fully qualified user and password to make sure nobody else can pretend to sign as me, and make sure signature that carries my credential is in fact uniquely me. I can't refute that signature. And then I acknowledge that by signing this form I approve this document, and I'm going to sign. Notice I rejected, or I could have delegated, because it would have been silly to reject my own request, but I could have delegated to somebody else to sign if that was what I needed to do, either because I was on vacation or for whatever reason. So now signed. Now go back to that SharePoint Test 1 user, look at their task list. There's a document approval request for that customer complaint intake SOP. You know that wasn't there until the author signs it. So the other reviewers don't get the notice until the author signs the document. And then as soon as the author signs the document, all those other functional reviewers get the notice about their approval request. I'm going to assume that as SharePoint Test 1, I've reviewed that carefully constructed document. I've looked at the history behind the document, where it came from. I looked at all the properties to make sure it's properly categorized and properly labeled. And I'm going to say, yes, I'm prepared to approve this document. So I'm going to call myself an approver. I'm going to provide my unique user ID and password. Those user ID and password. And I'm going to sign form I approve this document. So I'm going to sign this as the functional approver here. Now that the functional approver has signed the document, I come back over to my third, if you remember, when we initial approval request initiated as the author, sent the approval role to Test 3 user. So SharePoint Test 3 user's tasks, and refresh that screen. Now the functional approvers have approved it. Now I've got an approval request as the QA approver. The process takes place here. The QA approver reviews the document, reviews the history document, reviews the metadata and the properties of the document, says I am ready to approve this, yes or no. They can click test. They can say I am approving this as a QA approver, and therefore this will be the final only QA approver that approve request, the final approval required to add the document into fully approved status. Sign this, and as I said, this is the last open status approval request. I can approval request list, and here's my document request. I can hear it's going to change from progress to completed. So what does that mean? So I can look at history to say, okay, what happened on this approval process? See, I'm getting error messages, guys. I can't send email, but other than I can see who the tasks, who the approvals on this document, and what the status of those tasks are. So all three are complete now. I can click here through to get to the original document. I can click here through to see the details on that particular task to do the approval. But in case, if I go back to my original author view, if I go back to my author view and go back to my drafts folder, complaint intake SOP is now approved. So again, it wasn't a system user, I wouldn't even see this document anymore, because now that it is approved, what's important about this document isn't this Word version. What's important about this document is the finalized PDF version of the approved document. Look at the complementary file here, and that I've got a history behind what happened to this document. So you can prove the initial creation of the document. I can see that we got a document version 1.0, an approved document. The document is now available to all users, and the approvers were SharePoint Test 3 was the QA approver, SharePoint 1 was the approver, and Paul Nor approved as an author. So you can see the history behind where this version 1 document came from. And now there is a document in this standard operating procedures library. And you notice there PDF files, editable, they are published, they are in status approved or effective with an actual version number attached to them and the official document number attached to them. So this is the library that I will probably make available to most users, so that most users will be able to have access to the approved and only the approved version of the operating procedures. And you notice the cover page on every SOP is approval history of that the system has created this cover page listing out the approvers and what role they approved. It's about what they're attesting to their signature, and the rest of the document is, as we look for that same template, that same details that we put in for that document. This is a managed document that can be controlled, and distributed, and made accessible to people. Reference point for doing their job. So we've got our document history that shows where that PDF came from and who approved it, and everything's great with that document, right? And there, the process ends, at least it stops for a very long time. So what could happen in the life cycle of a document? Well, a couple different things could happen in the life cycle of a document, even after it's approved. Number one, we could say, okay, we've gotten enough people trained in this new SOP, it's time to make it effective. And that's as simple as coming to the document, clicking, and send. Create a document. And what that, are you going to say, yes, you're sure you're going to ready to set it be effective. Also get logged back to that document history file we just looked at. I'll be ready to do that. The other thing I could do here, this is a great document, but the business has changed and we need to submit a change request. Say, let's submit a change request. Let's leave the approved document in place until after it's effective. So once it's I can set a change, the effective version will stay in place, but then new draft version of that document in the drafts folder for the reviewer, the change author, to be able to then walk through that entire process. And then once that new version is approved, it will then replace the 1.0 version and end up with a 2.0 version of that same document. This one will be retired. If the SOP no longer applies to the business and no longer is an active business, I could submit a withdrawal request. That will then go to a set of approvers to approve the withdrawal. And then once the document is withdrawn, then it will be moved to the archive folder and removed from the active folder completely. So you can see a variety of different things that can happen in the life cycle of a document. It's important to have a single platform and a single set of processes and procedures that users can use to manage those things going forward. But then I promised if we had a couple minutes, and we have 2 minutes left by my clock, I think, we can learn a little bit about where some of those properties come from when we up a new document. Back to my home page here. The key steps we talked about here about creating new documents, starting reviews, submitting for approval, starting the change process, managing archival withdrawal requests. But we found here some links for the administration overview element system. Obviously, these wouldn't be accessible to your typical users. But for a system user, a system admin person, or a super user, one of the things they can do is configuring the different types of documents that are going to be available in the system. This is where a simple form, I can say I'm going to create a new document and can choose from the existing predefined document types and say, oh, I want my system to treat maybe a raw material spec. So when I have a material spec, now I can choose what library do I want to put the drafts for new raw material specs. I can library do I want to put the released, approved, and effective PDF versions of raw material specs. I can choose the library. I can choose where I want to put that internal document history file that's linked to those specs. And I say when I'm putting it out for review, where do I want to put out the review drafts for collecting review comments and reviewing reviews to access the system documents from. And then I specify a number format. So likely you want to be able to specify specific document number formats for different types of documents within your system. This is where I can do that, where I can specify, it's the standard operating procedure version we looked at. It started with an SOP dash, and then it had a numeric number. This is where I could configure that type of numbering scheme to put any kind of prefix, any kind of suffix I want to, and then embed a sequential number that the system will assign automatically to individual documents. Or you can configure so that you can manually number each document yourself when it gets created. As it is to define the parameters how the system should handle a new document type, and so that becomes a simple thing to do as your new types are identified or the system needs to change and grow as your company, your organization changes and grows. This is how easy it is to reconfigure the different element system. Very hands-on level for the different functions that are important to manage within the document management system and how the Max Life document management system addresses those things. That and the timing where we are as a refresher of the flow chart that we walked through. I think we're ready to get you, Ron and Danielle, and see if we have any questions.
Thanks very much, Paul. Excellent presentation. Before I to Danielle and invite Danielle to make questions, make observations, just want to remind everyone, if you do have questions, please send those through the Q&A feature on WebEx. Type them in, and I'll read them, and we'll get right to them. So until that point, Danielle, if you'd like to jump in for a couple minutes, go ahead.
Thanks for that wonderful presentation. Documentation is so important, especially in the life sciences. Make sure everything's done, making sure we're following the correct procedure. I think it's super important. I'm glad you showed the internal document history so that you are seeing every change that's being made. Question is, where do you see the main integration point between a TIC system and a document management system?
That's a good point, Danielle. I meant to talk about it earlier. It's an important element to understand why we're talking about document management systems today at all, right? There's a couple different elements. Even Microsoft Dynamics AX without MaxLife and without the MaxLife document management system has some core document handling, document management features built in it, where you document attachments to different elements within the ERP system itself. Doesn't have the full versioning, the full electronic signatures and sign-offs and controls that the document management system has. So what does that mean to answer your question? So typically what we see when we're implementing ERP systems for life sciences, it's incredibly important for the product masters, the item masters that are set up in the ERP system to have a hard and irrefutable link to the approved product spec that describes from a quality standpoint, from a product definition standpoint, what are the key attributes of that system. Those are captured in the ERP system itself, but having a link to the document that the QA and the product development, the R&D team have developed and validated and approved and gotten approval for the definition of the product, having a link to those documents is important. So being able to have a secure place to manage those documents and then simply being able to link to them from the core ERP system is a critical component. The other element is there are some of these documents that are actually being generated from the ERP system. AX, when you're completing a batch in a manufacturing standpoint, you're creating a quality order. The quality order has various tests that you've defined from your testing protocol for that product. The test results are recorded in the quality order, and so a certificate of analysis can be generated based on the product attributes that are collected from those tests. Where am I going to store that certificate analysis? Where am I going to save that as a document that can then be referenced by people outside of the ERP, or being referenced as an electronic record, a historical document that is unchangeable and reviewed and controlled, that document management role. So I can generate in the EP, I can generate a COA document, have it signed and approved in the ERP itself, but have that moved immediately and automatically into the document management system as an archival and a management platform to track and manage that document through its full life cycle. It's just a couple of the elements where we see a critical interface with ERP frequently.
Great, thank you for that. Rob, questions, or should I keep going with mine?
Any questions from the audience yet, Danielle? So if you have another one, go ahead.
Mine kind of goes along with, my next one goes along with that. So how do you normally typically approach validation of the system?
It depends a lot on what the individual organization's validation strategy is. A lot of people like to use an outside party as an independent validation organization, and there's a couple folks we're working with that do a great job at coming in and providing that validation expertise. But from a distributed third-party standpoint, so they bring a lot of credibility and a lot of objectivity to the process. Other organizations have a really well-developed internal validation team with the QA or regulatory group, and so we work with them to follow their validation strategies. Companies want to implement a DMS platform first because it gives a great platform for managing the validation documents, even. So sometimes that's an important first step as a precursor to work through the details of the actual ERP implementation. And other times, it's something we do in parallel with the ERP implementation to help and support the ongoing process of innovation and business transformation that's part of the ERP process as well.
Typical time frame for implementing a DMS system. Let's say we're even doing it alongside an ERP implementation.
If you're doing it alongside, typically the DMS is the easier piece. So the ERP system is the big business transformation element. The document management system is the record-keeping system, in a sense. And so it's easy for the document management functional team to keep up with the rest of the ERP team. If you're doing it independently, it's really quite common for companies to, like we were demoing today, we were looking at real SOPs as one of the key document types. That's frequently the first place that a lot of companies want to start because there's a lot of document SOPs. It's hard to keep track of them. It has the training aspect built in. And it's common for that to be kind of the first low-hanging fruit that people implement when they're talking about a new formal DMS system. And it frequently can be in a matter of a month or two, depending on the state of their current documents and the maturity of their existing QA processes.
Paul, we're just about to the end of our time, so I just want to start wrapping things up. But thanks for your questions. Thanks very much, and Paul, thanks for your answers too. As I said, don't see any questions from our audience, so just allow me to present us a couple more slides and wrap it up. We don't have any webinar. We will not have a webinar tomorrow on Tuesday, but we will be joined. We will end by QAD on the 3rd. I have those. I think I have those dates wrong. QAD will be joining us on December 3rd at 1 o'clock Central. So please join us for that if you can make it. Also, just want to remind you that we will be continuing our series, our Biotech and Med Device series, in January and February with Part 2 and 3. Part 2 being electronic batch records, and Part 3 will focus on contract manufacturing. So again, thank you very much to Paul and to Merit Solutions for joining us today. Danielle, thank you as well. And to our attendees, thanks for taking the time to be with us today for this webinar. And again, if you can join us tomorrow at 1 o'clock Central for QAD, please do so. So on behalf of Ultra Consultants, thanks very much for joining us, everyone. Have a terrific day. Goodbye.